Good afternoon. Welcome to today's CI Tools webinar. My name's Josh Osborne and I'm the Product Manager for the CI Tools here at Central Innovation. Welcome to today's session. This is our weekly CI Tools webinar session where we look at frequently asked questions about the CI Tools. We show tools that you might not know about or maybe that you don't know much about. We cover off specific questions people have had about the tools, and we sometimes talk about updates to the tools as well. Before we start, if you have any questions about anything we're going to cover today, you can enter those into the chat panels as we go, and I'll check on those about halfway through and see if there's anything I can answer as we're going through. And if you have any questions about other CI tools, that aren't necessarily related to what we're looking at today, you can enter those as well, and if I can't answer them today, I'll cover them in a future version of the webinar. We also have our help desk, so if you think of something later on that you want to ask, or if you have a suggestion for a future webinar topic, just send those through to our help desk at nz.support@centralinnovation.com. Today we're going to be looking at the Detail Elements tool. This is going to be less of a showing you how to use it webinar and more of a just showing you that it exists and what is there, because the how to use it is actually relatively self-explanatory for most of these objects. But we're going to go through and show you what's available in there and give you an idea of what's available so that when you come to do detailing yourself, you know which parts you don't have to draw by hand. So we're going to look at that. We're going to be using ArchiCAD 27 today, but we're not going to be covering off anything that is not available also in 26 or 25. So if you're using a slightly older version, this still applies to you. And if you are a customer, a Select customer in Australia, or if you're a ArchiCAD customer in New Zealand, you already have access to this tool. You may not know that, but you do. Anybody in those two countries should be able to access this. Once you get the tool installed in ArchiCAD, it's accessible via this Detail Element tool in your toolbox. It won't be there by default because it can't add itself automatically. So what you'll need to do, if you haven't done so already, is load up our work environment by going to Apply Profile and choosing the CI Tools Profile 27 or whatever version you're in. And that will place the tool into your toolbox. It'll also place in the electrical tool and the cabinet tool as well. If you have those installed, you'll see them pop up as well. But for our purposes today, it also adds the Detail Element tool. And that's what we'll be using to access all of the detail elements. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through and show you what all of the detail elements are that are available. And we'll place a couple of them down and show you how they work and that sort of thing. But yeah, that's what we're going to be covering today. So first of all, I'll open up my Detail Element tool, and the first thing you'll see is that we have a folder structure for the detail elements. There's a total of about, I think, 70 to 80 detail elements spread across these folders, and they're categorized by this sort of area of the building that they apply to. So obviously, before I jump into them, what is the Detail Element tool? The name kind of gives it away. It is a library of elements of detail drawings. So the idea here is that essentially it gives you a whole bunch of pre-drawn parts of your detail drawings so that you don't have to draw those up yourself or go find a DWG or a mod file or something like that, copy and paste them in from another project or anything like that. It just gives you these and you don't have to draw up a bunch of work yourself. So a lot of them aren't particularly complicated even. They are just doing a job that would take you maybe 5 minutes to do yourself or something like that. And also they're all parametric, so it means that once you do have one of them placed, if you need to stretch it or do any other sort of manipulation on it, you can just do that using the nodes that are provided, and you don't have to redraw anything or anything like that, which again could be quite a hassle if you were drawing them up by hand with lines and that sort of thing. So we're just going to go through and look at what's available. So we'll start with general, and this is basically all of the elements that we couldn't think of another folder that would fit them into. And so we're starting with the 2D custom profile. So as you can see in the settings for the custom profile, it just has a list of all of the profiles that are available in your project, and you just choose the profile that you want, and you can place it down, and it just gives you a 2D representation of that profile. So you can see that there. It's showing me a 2D representation of the custom profile that I had in my project. So you can use this for any custom profiles that you have in your project, and it just means that if you're drawing up a profile of something that you don't actually have placed in 3D, so you're not cutting through it, you just want to represent the shape of the profile, you can do that here. So you choose the profile that you want to display. You can enter a rotation value here. So we can enter that, and it will just do exactly what you would imagine that would do. And you can also multiply the profile as well. So if you want to have it repeating, so for instance, if we set this to 90 and we set up a multiplication there, it will just repeat them along there, and we can specify the spacing there to make them not cover over each other. And that will still covering over each other a little bit, but you can see that it is just repeating that pattern all the way along. So that is the 2D custom profile. I'll just jump down to steel sections because it's kind of similar. The CI Tool steel sections works in essentially the same way, but instead of using the custom profiles in your project, it uses a set of steel sections. So you can come and choose what kind of symbol you want. So we can say, I want to choose a Z purlin. It defaults to use a custom profile, which you can see there, but we can click in here and choose a specific profile and then a specific size for that profile. So we choose the Z219, it will resize itself to the specs of whatever that thing is that you chose. And there's plenty of options available here, so we could choose one of the girts, set that there. There's quite a few available, so in most cases, if you're doing a steel section, it will be covered in here somewhere. Once you have selected the specifics of how you want it to be set up, you can see here that everything is grayed out at the moment, and that's because we have a specific size set. If we change this to custom and change this to custom, we will keep the settings that we have at the time, but we can go through and we can change these to whatever we want. So if you do have something that has something similar to it but not quite right, you can go in and hit the custom option and make that match whatever it is that you need it to there. And then over on the right we have the repeating units, the same as we had for the previous element, and the settings for the attributes on this. The all parameters fields for most of the detail elements don't show you anything that you're going to need to worry about, so you can ignore that in most cases. Most of the detail elements just have a configuration page here and nothing else to them. So that is the steel section. That's what that looks like. And as you can see, we have a bunch of nodes all the way around it. So we can grab hold of any of these and stretch them out to the size that we need. That one stretches the spacing, that one will make a lip come in further, etc. You'll see those reflected in the dimensions here. Of course, if we have one of the preset sizes selected, you won't get the nodes there because it's set to a specific size, but once we choose custom, we do get those nodes there. So you can modify that to be whatever you need. So that's the two profile options there that are kind of similar to each other. We've also got a composite lining, which will just draw up some line work for you essentially. You choose the amount of linings that you want to have, and then you can specify what each lining is. So you can say what the gap is, what the thickness of the lining is, and then what the line type and the material that the lining uses is, and then it will just draw those for you. And you can see we have some hotspots here to allow us to adjust the actual path that these follow, because you're obviously not always just going to want a corner like that. So we can go through and adapt that to whatever shape and size we need it to. Flashing tool works similarly. It's just drawing up some line work for you that would be annoying to have to do yourself. There's a bunch of preset shapes here, so we can say let's have this shape here or this one here, and it will just go through and pre-draw that for us. So we've got our double line all the way around, fitting the shape that we need. As you can probably tell, it would be kind of a hassle to draw this yourself just because of the two lines inside each other, or as a fill, just keeping everything consistent. This just does the job for you, so it's nice and easy. But as I said before, it's not doing anything particularly complicated. It's just doing an annoying job for you. CI Tools insulation will draw up some insulation for us. Fiber bats by default, but we can change to polystyrene if you like. And you can choose where you want them to be anchored. If we hit OK on that, you can see our repeating insulation there. We can stretch that to whatever size we want, and we can also grab the middle hotspot and make it bend to any amount that we want as well. So again, just doing something that would be a hassle to draw. I'll stop saying that because I keep on saying the same thing. CI Tools lining is a variation on the composite lining, except it's a single piece of lining. So it's just going to place essentially a rectangle that conforms with what you set it to here. You can miter the ends and that sort of thing. Steel sections we looked at before. Timber member will show us a section cut of a timber member here. And a polygonal timber member will do the same, but with a shaped piece. So we can come in here and go there. Once we place this, you can then modify the overall shape of this one by stretching these out. And those will conform with the settings that you just saw that I was modifying in there. So that's all of the general ones. Now we move on to the floors. 3 different types of floors. We've got 2 types of boards here. We've got a decking board, which is going to draw the little sort of fin things all the way across that you can adjust all the dimensions of, and it will just repeat those for as long as you need it to. So it's going to draw that single element, and then you just drag it to the size you want, and it will repeat them as many as it can do. The floorboard works in the same way, so you choose what kind of floorboard you want. And it will draw those up for you, and then you can just stretch them out and they'll repeat along that length as well. And the floor framing works in a similar way as well. So we can say, let's draw up some floor framing here, and it will draw the framing with the insulation between it like we told it to. We can modify the overall size of it, stretching it out to get the amount of repeating units that we want as before. We can also grab the nodes to adjust the amount of members that it uses as well. So we can adjust those to where they need to be. Whoops, I resized that too small. To where they need to be, and then adjust the set out of the members and that sort of thing on them as well. The walls work in a similar way, so there are a lot of repeating units doing certain things. Brick wall section does exactly what it sounds like. So we've got our sections of brick that will repeat as we stretch it out. You can choose how the mortar pointing works as it goes along, and you can control the attributes. Concrete block section is essentially the same, but it's doing sections of concrete block. You can also choose how the top and base blocks are designed, so you can have a sill at the top and a rebanded lintel at the bottom, for instance, and it will just do that. Again, we can stretch it out to whatever size it needs to be, and it will repeat that block work inside, and we can also resize the lintel there. Concrete block plan view will show us a concrete block in plan, which is being cut through there, pretty straightforward. Furring sections will allow us to create a repeating furry section here. We can choose from custom, which is just going to use a rectangle there, rondo, and timber, and it will just repeat those units across there, so we can choose what kind of furring channel we want, and then we can drag this out, and it will just repeat those all the way across the length as it has for everything else. You can also use this hotspot to adjust the offset of the sections from the beginning as well. Timber wall frame works similarly to the block ones do, but it's for timber framing. So you'll see the timber framing there. We've got a gap in the middle for an opening, and you can use the hotspots to adjust various parts as well. So we can adjust the height of the frame itself, where the members are and that sort of thing, where the opening is, and all of that sort of business, and it's drawing in the framing as well as the insulation as well. Wallboard section is essentially doing what the covering tool would do if you had those there. So this will let you do that without drawing those, or let you add them to a detail easily. So you can choose what kind of weatherboards you want, and it will just draw those up for you. And then again, as with everything else, when we, oh, that's the offset. When we've resized it, it will just repeat the units there. And then the last one in the wall section is wall frame section. So this will give us, similar to the wall framing element, but it will just give us a particular chunk of the wall frame there rather than the entire thing. And then we can move on to roof. I'm just going to quickly check and see if there's any questions, and then I'll be right back. All right, no questions at this stage. So moving on to the roof. So we have a handful of standalone parts of roofs here. We've got a fascia board, a gutter that will let you choose multiple different kinds of gutter that you want to draw, a ridge cap, cladding profile itself. So you can choose from a couple of different cladding profiles here. Choose those and choose if you want to see sectional elevation views of them. And you can set the roof pitch as well, so you don't have to rotate it after the fact. Roof cladding section will let us draw a repeating cladding piece, so we can go in here and we can say whatever type it is that we want. Let's go with tiles, and draw that up, and then when you stretch it out it will repeat the tiles all the way across, and you can see those joining up, and they've got a framing piece underneath each part. And then there's a whole bunch of different trusses available. These all have different settings depending on the type of truss they are, but they work in a very similar way. You can see the settings look quite similar. They just set out different things for different truss shapes and designs. And then the last one is a section view of said trusses as well, and that will work in essentially the same way that you would expect there. Ceiling just has the one element, which is the ceiling battens. This works quite similarly to the floor framing, so we can choose if we want to have insulation on it and what the battens should look like. Hit OK, and we can place that, and then we can do the usuals. We can stretch out just part or the entire thing. You'll see the everything goes to match it when we do that, and if I grab this bottom one, we can also bring that in again as well. So we can bring those ends in if we need to. Doors and windows has just two elements here, and this is just to add extra detail that you might not have there. The glass is again very basic 2D piece. It's just drawing both the shape of a piece of glass and a sealant bead as well, which you can control the size of to draw that in, and it's drawing the both parts of that there. Interior trims will show us some, as you can imagine, interior trims. So the interior trim section option will let us choose the type of trim that it is. Choose if we want to be able to edit the profile, and then we can flip and rotate it and that sort of thing. And then we can modify the actual edges of the profile as well here. And that will, if I come back in here and say, edit the shape, we can go in here and we can modify any of those nodes that are here to make it do whatever it is that we need it to. And you see they get annotated so that we know which node we're working on as we edit it. But once you're done with modifying it to the shape that you want, you can go back to no editing and it will affix it at where you set it to. Scotia section just lets you choose what type of scotia you want, a caved or a coved or a colonial type, and then you can set the dimensions for that. Pretty straightforward. You can modify this part here, and the skirting section does exactly what it sounds like it would do. We can choose if we want to have a beveled bullnose or chamfered, which you'll see affects the display of it there, and you can control the settings for how those all work there and the attributes as with before. So again, relatively simple, just doing a job that you don't have to do. The fastenings folder is, I think, the biggest one because it has a bunch of different fastening types in them. These all work in pretty similar ways to each other. So you can see we can select the bolt here. And when we do that, there's a bunch of different bolt options, so we can switch to a coach bolt, and then you can see this kind of complicated looking little diagram here. Essentially it's just showing us what each of the values below is measuring out, and then you can go through and modify any of those to reflect whatever it is that you need them to. We can choose if we want to have washers on and a nut on there, and you can choose what view of this you want to actually display. So you could show the head end, the nut end, or one of the various side views, turning on or off various parts of it. You can also bend it as well if you need to. And once we place that, you'll see a bunch of hotspots appear on it as well, which do things like stretching out certain parts of it. So this part here will increase the separation there. This one will change the length of the threaded portion. This will allow us to change the bend, and this will allow us to change where the bend comes in. So you've got plenty of control of the way that that displays, and most of the other bolt objects in here work in a similar way. So the Dynabolt works similarly. You can choose some settings about it, and when you place it, you'll be able to see that. And the same for the Engineer's bolt. Choose what kind of bolt you're wanting to use, and then adjust the settings accordingly, and it will place as you would expect, and you can stretch certain parts of it. We've also got a nail here, which literally is indeed just a nail. Not much more to say about that, I guess. A nail plate is a bit more complex, so you can choose if it's a nail or knuckle plate, and then set the settings for how big each piece is, what the gap is between them, and that sort of thing. And it will draw that up for us. Pile fixing will allow us to just draw up a pile fixing. We can set the dimensions for that, and the post bracket is very similar. You can choose what sort of type of set out it is, so the head type and the base type. Choose the pattern for the fastenings on it, and then we can choose the view as well, so we can choose the front or the side view, and that will just place exactly as you probably would imagine it would. Lumberlock post bracket is very similar. Again, you can just choose the specific bracket type that you want, and then it will do that for you. Mostly not adjustable, these ones, because they are for specific types of thing. The rivet is just a rivet, similar again to the way that the bolt worked and that sort of thing. You can control all of the settings that you might need to, and the way that it displays. And the screw is similar again, so we can choose what type of screw. And then what dimensions you want it to have, and that sort of thing. And the threaded rod works similarly to the bolts as well, so you choose the dimensions for it, choose how many nuts and washers should be applied, and how it should bend. And again, we get controls over a lot of these sorts of things as well, so that you can modify them in your actual drawing rather than in the settings. Reinforcing gives us a bunch of different options to do with reinforcing beams, bars or rebars. So if I choose this one here, you'll see it places in this rectangular shape by default, and then you can grab hold of a lot of the hotspots and modify those, so you can resize it to the size that you need, change the angle on the hook parts, and all of that sort of thing. So that's the rebar 2D element. Reinforcing cage, I guess is what it is, will let you do similar, so you can extend that part out and change the overall size, obviously. Reinforced starter is a freeform version of the same, so it will draw out a shape for us, and then you can see there's a very large amount of hotspots on this one, which will let us modify it to whatever shape we need it to do. So you can see it adjusting to all of those settings that I need. So you can make a rebar section that will just go to whatever size you need by manipulating those. Reinforced beam will just draw up a reinforcing beam for us, and we can extend it out. and the mesh works in a pretty similar way as well. So it's just going to draw those repeating parts as well, and we can stretch it out to whatever and they'll just keep going along. And the reinforcing rod is the last one, which is just a sectional view of one of the rods itself. Alright, last folder is symbols. It looks like I'm just running on time, so these are just some 2D symbols. We've got a break line, which will let you set up the spacing between the pieces and stuff. So we're doing a top and base one at the moment. You could do left, right as well. We could just rotate it, I guess. And it lets us set the size of the pieces of the break part, and it also lets us set a masking fill in between it. So this one's set to inside the break lines. You can have it inverted and have them outside the break lines, and when you choose either, you can define what's going on in there when you do it. So if we go outside, you can see those fills outside of it now, and you can also drag these parts around to match whatever you need in there. Cylinder break line works in the same way, but it's for a cylinder, as you can see there. Roof pitch will just allow you to easily tag a roof pitch in there by drawing this on and setting what the roof pitch will display. And the weld symbol is a weld symbol, which will let you go in and choose how you want it to be displayed. And then you can set what each of the symbols for each part of the symbol is, and just place that, and it will look like what you design using those settings there. So yeah, that is the quick tour of all of the available detail elements in our detail element tool. We are definitely open for suggestions of other things that we could put into this. So if there are any other detail sort of pieces of detail drawings that you think would be useful, please let us know, and we can add those into the tool. Just checking for the questions. Someone's saying we need to update the tools for ArchiCAD 28. We're working on that right now. As you may or may not know, the technical preview of ArchiCAD 28 started last week sometime. We got the ability to start building our add-ons for it last week as well, so we're working through doing that. If you'd like to be included in the beta test for the CI tools, please just log a support ticket with us and let us know that, and we will get in touch with you when we have tools ready. But yeah, we only get access to the technical preview at the same time that you do, so we have started work now on getting the tools ready, but they do take time for us to produce. So once they're ready, we can send those through to you if you want to sign up for them. Otherwise, they will just be released with ArchiCAD 28 when ArchiCAD 28 is officially released. Cool. All right, that looks like we don't have any further questions, so thanks for your time, everyone. Next week, I'm not sure what I'm going to cover next week, so if you have any suggestions, send those through. Otherwise, we'll look at something for sure. I just don't know what yet. But thanks for your time, and I hope to catch you at the next one. Thanks. Bye.